Welcome to Moment the Other Way, a podcast about your journey in finances. I'm your host, James. We have Peggy with us today to look at some more Reddit reactions. In this episode, we'll start with, my boss is changing me to 1099. My boss is beginning to change the company to only 1099 employees. As a W-2 employee, I was making $32 an hour, and he wants to pay me $38 an hour as a 1099. What I can't figure out is if this is good or bad for me. My deductions don't really increase because I already claim all my deductions for a personal business I run, so not sure if this has any upside to this change. So, Peggy, what are your instant reactions with that?
Just really quickly, I mean, I'm not an HR person, I'm not a legal professional, but basically when you're an employee, a W-2 employee, right, that's when you get a regular salary, all your taxes are paid, you pay part of your taxes and the company pays part of your taxes, right? So that's a W-2 employee. But there's a lot more to it because a W-2 employee can't claim expenses for your home office. You can't claim expenses for, I don't know, buying pens or pencils, or right? That's all supposed to be supplied to you. So that's a W-2. A 1099 employee is basically a private contractor. So it's like you're self-employed. And so a big thing with self-employed is self-employment tax. So when you pay self-employment tax, it's basically your Social Security. And as a W-2 employee, you're paying like, I don't know, it used to be 7.62% of your salary up to $150,000. And the company is paying the other 7.62% or whatever. And that's how your Social Security money gets put in, right? And if the employer's not doing it and you make a certain amount of money as a self-employed person, you have to put in the employee part and the employer part. Mm-hmm. And they call it self-employment tax. So that's a big thing. So I think that this person did say that they were receiving a little bit higher salary. Yes. Or hourly, let's say that.
Yes.
But another big thing is that I don't know if the company can do this legally. Because the company has to change the way they do work. Because if you go on to the IRS website or probably the Department of Labor, there are rules about who can be a 1099 employee. So for instance, you can't tell a 1099 employee that they have to come into the office and be there from 8 to 5 and take a lunch from 12 to 1. That will disqualify them from being a 1099 employee. Mm. So a 1099 employee has to have more control of their schedule and their workflow. And so there's a lot of different things that you would have to look into to see if this is something that is even allowed for them. If it's not allowed, obviously that's a red flag. I think that you had mentioned something in one of the comments. They said, well, then that the company might be having a hard time making payroll.
Yep.
So check into how the company is doing. And that's true. That could be something. But also, you don't have any insurance anymore. Like, and I don't mean insurance like your medical insurance. I mean workers' comp insurance. So if you get injured on the job, nobody's covering that.
Yeah.
You're an independent contractor now. So I don't know they don't say what their job is.
Yeah, that's the other part.
So we've talked about this, I think, before. When you hire a contractor, so when you hire a housekeeper to come to your house, right? Or when you hire a landscaping company, and you'll hear a lot of people, make sure that they're licensed. Part of the thing about making sure that they're licensed is about their insurance. Because remember, if they're coming onto your property and your home and an injury happens, as a company that is insured and licensed, they're going to cover that, right? Yeah. But if you're hiring, the neighbor and they are doing some stuff for you and something happens, then there's no workers' comp insurance to cover that. That might end up being on your liability insurance or your homeowners. So I don't know what they do for work, but that's a big consideration that they should look into. So self-employment tax, insurance, and if you're going anywhere, do you need to get some type of bonding or insurance for yourself? Also insurance for your conduct or something that happens when you're on the job.
Yeah.
Right. So what if you're a car wash employee and you drop something and scratch the car? Are you now responsible for that damage, or is the car wash now responsible for that damage? I don't know. So for me, it would be a lot more of a conversation. From a financial standpoint, yes, you got a bump into your salary, but you are going to probably end up paying more taxes. Yes, it means you can write off some more things. You said you're already writing off some things for a different business.
Yeah.
So I'm not so sure that this is a financial win for you.
Yeah.
And so that's a big thing. But I think that the other stuff is also really worth looking into because that might actually end up being a financial burden to you.
The next question we have, Peggy, is would I be able to get my mortgage down below $1,500 a month? I've had a house for 3.5 years. There have been a few lenders mailing spam, but it has gotten me curious. Originally, with my current loan, I did buy down where my rate was 4.75 for the first year, around 1450 a month, then 5.75 the second year, around 1650 a month, and now it's at the final 6.75 around 1850 a month. The spam mail claims that they could get me down to 1230 a month, which I know is excluding a bunch of taxes and such. It does have me wondering, though, if I'd be able to get under 1,500 a month again, or if I'd be better off recasting instead of refinancing. I currently still owe 230,000 on the house, and at the exact time I have left on my loan is almost 27 years.
So first thing I would want to talk to this person is this $1,500 number, where'd it come from? So is this a number that they have budgeted? Is that the number that fits in their budget? I don't know. They bought down the interest rate, so I wonder how much that cost. So refinancing is not free. I'm sure recasting probably isn't free either. And you have to put money in.
Yep.
So my question is going to be things like, why do you want to do this? Right? I mean, if you're just trying to get to the $1,500, is it going to go up more? Right? Because they said it has gone up. So it's at the max now and it's going to be this number all the way through the rest of the loan term. Did it say that?
Yes, that's how it reads.
Okay. And what was the final number?
6.75% or 1850 a month.
1850 a month. Oh, that is kind of a big jump for them, I guess, if they're trying to stay. It started at 14 something, right?
Yeah, they went up $300 a month in 2 years.
Okay. And then it's still going to keep going up, even though technically it probably isn't supposed to, but it goes up because your taxes may go up. It also goes up because your insurance may go up, right? So you have to, I don't know, I'm assuming that they probably have
account for that.
Yeah, I don't know. So my big thing would be to find out about their budget, what their goal is, what their finances look like. Refinancing costs a good amount of money, and a super quick rule of thumb, you're not going to really want to refinance if you're not going to get a 1 percentage point break. It just because the costs, right? The cost is significant. And when you talk about recasting, putting money in, then I'm wondering, well, you have this money and is it invested in earning money for you? And where are you going to get that money? And is it earning more than what your interest rate is? So now you have to put in the cost benefit of that. So basically, I would want to run a bunch of scenarios with them. We can put it in financial planning software and do what ifs and see, well, if your interest rate comes down half a point, but you had to put in, $50,000, is that really what you want to do? Because maybe if you put that $50,000 into an investment, then it's a better deal for you. So I would really kind of caution them just making a decision without looking at all of these factors, right? So you got to look at how much would you need to put in? How much is it going to cost? How much is it your interest rate going to go down? And your cash flow overall. And does putting more money into it now have what kind of an effect on your long-term success in, retirement or other financial planning? So, I mean, that's really where using tools like financial planning software where we can run scenarios and look at things is really going to be helpful.
Just give a few more details for you. Experian posts about a difference. They've got a little chart and I can screen grab it and I'll put it on the screen ahead so you guys can see it.
Okay.
But it talks about the difference between mortgage recasting and financing. It says for recasting fees, it's an administrative fee, typically a few $100s, whereas refinancing closing costs can be 2 to 5% of the loan amount. Eligibility is an interesting thing here. It says virtually all mortgage types can be refinanced. A minimum credit score of 620 is generally required for the conventional mortgage refinance. The eligibility for recasting, however, depends on the mortgage lender, though you cannot recast federally backed mortgages like FHA, USDA, or VA loans. And then it says it won't change your interest rate, it won't change your loan term, and a home appraisal is not required.
Okay, so say it costs $300, say it costs $500, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's the opportunity cost that really needs to be evaluated here. Because when you are buying a home and you put in $10,000, it changes your payment a tiny little bit over the 30 years. So to get your payment down by $300, you're going to have to put a pretty good chunk of change. And what's the opportunity cost of that long term in an investment account versus getting rid of, that amount of the debt? Now, if you can't afford it and you're going to default, well, then you wouldn't have a chunk of change to deposit anyway.
It doesn't sound like that's the case in this issue. This sounds more of a case of they don't like how high their payment is.
I think a lot of people get nervous about things like that, but maybe they can really afford it. Even I get nervous about things like that, right? Like I haven't had a car payment for a really long time, and I just recently purchased a car. And so now I have a car payment. It's like, don't forget to pay the car payment. So there's a comfort level that we get used to. And there's also a lot of thing out there about debt and how bad it is and all of that. And what if something happens? Well, that's absolutely true. What if something happens? You have signed up, you have another 27 years on a mortgage, right?
Yep.
Well, that's what your emergency fund is for, right? That's your what if something happens. That's why we encourage you to have an emergency fund of some kind. And then that emergency fund, for some people, it's 3 months, and for some people, it's 6 months, and for some people, it's more, right? How long is it going to take you to find a new job if you lose your job? What's the biggest emergency that could happen in your life? We have those conversations, right?
Yep.
So I think that comes down to people's comfort levels. So is it a comfort level thing or is it a financial thing? And we would want to know that.
I liked where you brought up about the trade-offs of if you were to use this money now or if you were to continue to let it sit and grow. And we've talked about this in previous episodes regarding home buying. I think something that maybe you could touch on here is, one, not spending your entire amount of, saved up money in your nest egg to buy a home, because now you have more to use and grow off principal later. But also, once you've spent that money on the house, replenishing.
Yeah, it takes a long time to replenish. Typically, right? I don't know if everybody's financial picture is different, right? So we're just talking about the average American. I would think it's going to take a long time to replenish if you take a large chunk of money and put it into a home. And remember, a home is not a liquid asset. It's difficult sometimes to sell a home. And from personal experience, houses are selling in 15 days and the market's great. Yeah, that's great. 3 months later, you put your house on the market and it takes 9 months to sell it. So this is something that's difficult. It's not like a stock that you can just sell on the open market. It's not like a mutual fund, right? It's potentially can be a lot more difficult to sell. So when you take that money that you maybe have invested in, say, a mutual fund or a stock, and you take it out and you put it in a house, it is no longer easy to get in an emergency. So you can't really consider your house as your emergency fund. And as we know, when you buy a house, there's a ton of expenses that people don't think about. There are opportunity costs when you start spending your savings on things. And when you have good investments and you're going to buy something, then a conversation about how much should I put down? Well, we're going to put down 20% because then we don't want to have PMI, which is private mortgage insurance, right? And I get that, because that's part of the discussion, right? Well, how much can you afford to make on your payments? Where are we getting the down payment? All of that comes into play. And so you have to weigh the opportunity costs of not having the money invested long-term. And is that worth it to you? So.
And if you have questions regarding refinancing or recasting or buying a home, you can meet with the financial advisor. You can meet with Peggy, or you can meet with Wanda with us at financesforalife.com. The schedule an appointment button is in the top right of the page. And you can continue to listen to this podcast every few weeks. We post on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Also on our website, we introduced a new podcast page where you can see some of our top episodes. So if you want to look more into home buying, our whole home buying series is also on that page. So thanks so much for listening to this podcast. We hope you enjoyed, and we hope you have a good rest of your day.
Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA, SIPC. Investment advice offered through Finances for Real Life, a registered investment advisor and separate entity from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision.